PDQ Live. Today we're talking about new laps.
New laps.
So there were some concerns about the original laps.
Mm-hmm. Legacy laps.
Legacy laps. Mm-hmm. So Microsoft was like, well, we're going to do it more gooder.
Exactly. That's the technical word for it. Yeah. You nailed it.
So on the bright side, we have made the changes within the product. If you have the latest version, 19.3.440, then you're good to go. Mm-hmm. But we're going to cover everything you do to set up in your environment and then go over how to set up laps in PDQ one more time and be good to go.
First thing is, if you didn't run the April 2023 update, legacy laps will still work in DNI. So that's the first thing. It only broke in April. So why did it break? We should probably talk about that just quickly. It broke because DNI was looking at a certain location. So it was looking at attribute editor. Well, when new laps came out, it moved those credentials. So DNI is like, what are you doing? It's not here anymore. I don't know where to look. So that's why it broke. So, and it used to be in plain text. Now it's encrypted. So DNI just didn't know what to do with any of that information. So that's the main reason why it broke.
All right. So when we're setting up laps, if you already have laps set up, it's a bit more of a process.
Yes.
If you have no laps and you're looking to set up laps for the first time, it's very straightforward, but we're going to cover for those that may have had laps that are looking to upgrade to new laps, because that's what we had to go through and we suffered, so hopefully you don't have to. Yeah,
there was definitely many swear words spoken over the last couple weeks, but so laps, local administrator password solution. So it stores a local administrator password on the local machine, and then it caches those credentials in Active Directory. And then it randomly changes those passwords, or you can change them manually yourself. So it's just a more secure way of storing local administrator passwords. It prevents traversing through your network if you were to get hacked. So it's just a more secure way of storing your passwords, right? Pretty simple explanation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you have used it before, you're going to do a couple things. The first thing is you're going to delete the old group policy, or just unscope it, put it in group policy objects, make sure it's not scoped anywhere. And
in my opinion, you're going to want to do that a couple of days before anything else, just to make sure it does remove from everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't want any cross action, because once they try to go at the same time, everything falls apart.
Yeah, they don't play well together. So we'll talk about kind of some things that we had to do. So let's hop over to Active Directory, and I'm going to show you just a couple easy ways to tell the difference, because as always, Microsoft's documentation is clear as mud. So there was a little frustration in figuring out which one was right. So I'm just going to show you. I made a new OU. So that's the most important part. Make a new OU.
Well, if you're looking to do some computers.
We're going to test here.
If we're doing a test, a pilot group, we want that OU because we're only applying to that OU. Exactly. If you're looking to do it for your entire environment, you want it as high up in the tree as possible to make sure every computer gets it.
But when I started testing, I made a new OU, and then I dragged computers to the new OU, okay? So if I come down to just any of the other ones, and we're going to pick Hector, the old labs, legacy labs, is going to be down here, and it's stored in these attributes right here. So it's MS Labs, okay? This is where it was looking, and it was going to be in plain text, okay? So I'm just going to show you that briefly. Then we're going to hop over to group policy, and I'll show you the easiest way to tell if it's old and new. And in theory, the April 2023 updates your ADMX templates in group policy, but I had to go update mine manually. It was super annoying. So I'm going to show you how you know if it's there, because this was a little bit of a hurdle. So if I come down to policies, and it's going to be in admin templates, the quickest way that I found to discern the difference, if it'll open, this one right here is the old laps. Okay.
That one's sitting in the right under.
Says labs.
Okay.
That's not the one you want. That's legacy labs. The new one, come down to system, go all the way down. It's this guy. I don't know why they didn't name it better, but that's the one you want. So system and then labs. And so let's just drill into here. And we're going to include a whole article. And actually, it's the best one we found. Just follow it top to bottom. And so you're going to enable all these settings. So enable this one. And this allows Active Directory to manage this account. I didn't set all of these. And you can, of course, change this to be whatever you want. This is going to be so environment specific, so they're going to be a little different.
Yeah, so these are just kind of, this one is where you're keeping history. How long of a history you want to keep is up to you. So we're just kind of going with some defaults and do some reading and decide what's best for your environment.
That's right. Yeah. So enable this one. And again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because we included the guide on how to do it, so they can go back and read. But
so that last one, just so that one was basically password encryption.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just make sure you set all the ones that are specified. I didn't configure this one. So this one right here, I had a little bit of trouble with pre-existing local administrators. So I made a new local administrator. Now, people might not have the same issue, but in the reading that I did, this would be best practice. Make your new local administrator.
And that goes back to where we started with. If you have the legacy labs before, it's best to just completely remove all of it and start over.
Yeah. So if you don't have it, you likely don't need to do this step, but we did. So I made a new local administrator account, so you're going to reference it here. And then next setting, okay, this one's important. This right here, backup directory, you see you have options. So I'm going to back this up to Active Directory. So this means it's going to cache these credentials in Active Directory. It's going to create a whole new tab for labs. You see, I can actually pick Azure Active Directory. I can't do this for our scenario because DNI doesn't interface with Azure. So it's really important that you pick Active Directory here.
And real quick, just so for clarity, DNI, that's short for Deploy and Inventory.
Oh, sorry.
We had a couple people ask.
Sorry, Deploy and Inventory. Yes, sorry. Okay, so then next setting, I didn't configure this one. This one talks about the complexity of the password you want to set. And again, this is, set it for your environment, your preference. You can make it as long as you want. You can change the password age. I did 30 and 14.
So with this one, where the password is stored in Active Directory, but we're never going to need to type it in anything. You can have it as long as you want and have it rotate as often as you want because it's the account that has permission has the ability to access that decrypted password. So it's always connecting to AD and grabbing whatever is current.
Yeah, and I'll show you in AD how you can make it.
It can be as
expire.
aggressive as you want.
Yes,
if you want, I guess, to be ultra.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only one we said, but let's make sure. Yep. Okay. So then we're going to get out of that. So then you're going to do your normal GPO. You're going to apply it. So for what I did is I just scoped it to the GPO, the OU that I was testing with. And then the next thing I did, and there's various ways to do it, is I logged into these machines and I created the local administrator account because I like to do things the hard way. You could, of course, use Deploy and Inventory to create the local user. You could add a step, make the user, add it to an administrator group. You could do it various ways, but make the local user on the end computer. Then you're going to, well, you could do this first, but there's a couple things you want to do. But the end of the story is you need to do group policy force. But before you do that, you need to be on your domain controller. So my group policy management is on my domain controller. You have to run these PowerShell commands on your domain controller before this will work.
All right.
Okay.
Before I go into the PowerShell, I'm going to point out that you're in trouble with the security community.
Okay, good.
For having less than 15 characters on the password.
Oh, dang it. Okay, just up that then immediately.
Yeah.
So this part is new to the new labs. You didn't have to do these commands. This new PowerShell module is new.
Yes, so the module should already be there if you've updated.
Yes.
But a good way to check is if you do get command for the module lapse. If it comes up with commands, the module's there, you're good to go. If there's nothing, you're going to have to manually import the module, which is giving you the name of the module right there.
Okay.
So you can just do find module and import it that way. So the first thing we're doing, as someone in the chat pointed out early, is we're going to update the schema.
Yes.
So I ran all these previously just so we don't have to see it live. So we just update schema, and then I did verbose so you can see everything that it is changing. And this is what's changing Active Directory to have the new tab with all of the lab stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. And then the next command we're going to look around, and then sorry, it changes a lot, is this one here, the lapse AD computer self-permission. This is the one where you're saying every computer we're specifying an OU, has the ability to change its own local admin passwords.
Yes.
Because that's not there by default. So this one went there, and I pointed it to the OU that you built. They pointed everything to set that. Just get the result. And that is pretty much it.
Yeah. So you're going to run that. And then best case scenario, now you're going to run your group policy.
Yes.
Because you want to apply this on the domain. So it's going to apply to every computer on the domain. Then if we go to the OU, the lapse OU, and then click on any of these computers, now we're going to see that Labs tab at the top there. And this is how you know you've been successful. You're going to see all this information populated here. You'll have the local administrator account, and you see it's hidden right there. You could hit show password and it would show it to you. You could copy it. And you see that expire now. You can expire the password right here.
Yep. And I saw in the chat, Tim pointed out that you want to use the schema admin for that one. It is a role that usually goes above and beyond just regular domain admin. Otherwise, you could have some problems.
Oh, okay.
So make sure your role has the schema admin role, which is very elevated, but it will make sure it runs as best it can.
Okay. So that, as long as you see everything populated here, you are good. You are good to go. So now we're ready to jump into the product. Actually, can I mention something? Because I can't help myself. Okay. I know you're going to want to choke me out. But this is just how my mind works. So I watched a whole bunch of videos on Labs, and Deploy and Inventory only talk to Active Directory, right? But if you're in a hybrid environment and you make your config policy, so the equivalent of group policy, and you use Intune, the authoritative source, according to Microsoft, should be Azure. You can use Active Directory, but they do not like that. So what you can do, I'm just going to show you so quickly. I didn't have time to fully test this, so I'm going to preface this by saying what I'm saying to you is theoretical. It's theoretical, okay? Because I didn't get to fully test it because our tenant is cloud only, but in theory, you can come in here and you can make this policy that I just made, this profile, on-prem 80 cache credentials. And so you could join a machine to Intune and then see right here, this backup directory, back the password to Active Directory only. In theory, that's going to take the credentials from the local machine and put it in that same tab. Now, again, I'm going to say this for the record. Did not get to fully do this because I just had this brainchild this morning. But in theory, it should work.
I thought I heard someone.
I did too. I thought I heard my name.
No, go ahead.
All right. So before I dive into this, I want to point out you casually saying that I want to choke you out does not make me comfortable.
Oh, sorry.
I am not a violent person.
Well, no. I get obsessed. I need to know the answer. I need to know something works. And so we're literally up to showtime. I was furiously trying to get this to work.
Okay.
How's that? Is that better?
Yep.
Okay.
So luckily when it comes to setting up Labs in our products, nothing's changed.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just going to go options, credentials, and add Labs. That's the important one. So you said you made the local account Barbie.
I don't even know why I did that.
And while I'm doing this, did we have any questions that come in that we can answer?
Oh, we have a lot of questions.
Let's take some questions.
Yeah, we thought we might.
Yeah. All right, let's just dive in. What are the improvements of new Labs over old Labs? James T.
The biggest one is the password's no longer clear text in an attribute. It is encrypted within the different tab. I think out of everything else, that's the one that matters.
Well, Kerberos adds an extra layer of security. Yep. Used to be in NTLM. Now you have Kerberos on there. But yeah, plain text I think is the best.
Yep.
Would you like another one?
Let's do it.
Okay. Does Connect work with new Labs? If not, when will it?
So this one, I think it will eventually, because on the roadmap we have syncing with Azure, and where you said you can do it with a hybrid, there is a potential in the future, but not till Connect can work with Azure.
And it will be what I just demonstrated, yeah.
All right, so for the credential, if you want to share the computer. So I just did the local admin. I'll maximize that, see if that's not any more readable. The Labs user you set, and then it's just the account that I have that has the permission to go through and decrypt basically the credential. And that's it. So I'm just going to do a quick test on Sam since that one is in there. Test is successful.
Woo!
So that is using Labs for that one. So if you set this across your entire environment, right here is where you want to do set that as default. So everything is using Labs by default.
Okay.
But if in our case, we only have these three, you want to come in and you want to just change the scan user manually to Labs. And that way you have a little bit of control. So it's not all or nothing. And I believe if you have Labs set, it tries Labs first, and if it doesn't work, it falls back into the next thing.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that or have it backwards, but I believe that's the way it goes. I'm going to go set these real quick because there is one gotcha, and this is the same gotcha that we had with Legacy Labs. All right, so all of these are now using that. We're going to just do a regular scan against that collection.
I already see an error.
Yeah, that's from an old one.
Okay.
So we're going to scan the collection. We'll just do application to be quick. And the access denied that you saw, that is the one that we're looking for. And there's local UAC we're not going to touch. There's remote UAC where you have to set a registry key to allow this. This started happening around 1607 and later and continues to happen. So if you are running any sort of scan with lapse and you get accesses denied, there is a fix for that, and we'll cover that once I prove that it is broken. Apparently, while I was scanning, I guess we got more questions.
Those same security people are going to be unhappy with the answer, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
So we should go over this. So Windows 10, Windows 11, H2, lapse is compatible.
It's compatible with all of them.
Yeah.
Starting with 1607 and later, there is a potential issue with this.
Okay.
All right. Where you choose a new local admin, do you have a policy to create this user on all machines, or will this process do this?
You have to create it.
So
I did it the hard way. I'm sure Jordan and Andrew have a cool PowerShell way to do it.
Yeah, so this will not create the local admin. This is just saying if a local admin is built with this name, it will work.
Yeah.
And it gives you permission to update the passwords. So you can either have a group policy that says create this local user. You can do it with PowerShell or whatever command line tool to build it, or you can manually build it. As long as there is a local account that has the administrator group that has the same name, it will work though.
Actually, so according to Microsoft, if you, in that group policy, if you don't put a name in where I put Barbie, it will take the whatever administrator account is on the computer, but that made me super nervous. I don't like that, so I made my own.
So ideally, you're disabling the default local admin in the first place, but if you are using the default local admin, just leave that blank and sure it will work great.
Yeah, probably not the best.
All right, so as you see, we had Egghead Roadrunner worked, Sam came back with accesses denied. That's the error that we're talking about. So we're
The
going
remote UAC.
remote into Sam real quick, yep. There we go. That went faster in my head.
You're speeding.
All right, so let's go into there. It is a registry key, which I believe I already have open. So it is, go up to the top here. It's a local machine, software, Microsoft, and this should be in the document for, there's a PDQ document we have on how to fix this.
I think Kelly linked it, yeah.
Yep. So it's Microsoft and Windows, which is way down here. Windows, current version, and then the last part is system. Or no, I'm sorry, policies, then system. And by default, there probably is no policy. We built this one. I just have it set to 0. But it's lock account token policy or filter policy. This is the one that for remote UAC disables it so lapse will work again. So if we set that to a 1, but this is a local machine group policy, so we have to restart the machine. After this machine reboots, it will go back to working for us.
Okay.
So it's not an ideal. You can do PowerShell while that's rebooting. We'll show the PowerShell. Where I specified right there the key, the name, and the value. Normally, I'd go in and do a test path to make sure that the entire key exists beforehand, but where this one's policy system, that exists, you can be pretty sure.
Okay.
So I just go straight into the build the new item property with that path, give it the name and the value of 1. So with that group policy, if with your existing account that you've been using to deploy, you can deploy that out and it would set that registry on the machines.
Okay.
But that is one that does have some security questions. So if you're going to be doing that, talk to your security team first to make sure they give you the okay.
But if you've been using Lapse, you've probably already done that.
On ours, if you've been using Lapse already, it's most likely been there because the access denied. It doesn't happen to every machine, but it is starting 1607 to happen on enough that we have to have the workaround.
Okay.
So the question in there real quick said, do we disable UAC? We disabled remote UAC. The local UAC policy is still in place, but yes, it is necessary. Otherwise, the access denied will not go away. All right. So now that is, we'll assume the reboot is done. Hold on. Heartbeat it real quick. Yep. All right. So now we're just going to rescan that machine with applications. It's going to take a little bit of time, but this time the scan should work. And now the inventory is working, the scanning is working for all of that. The next part is how do we get deploy to work, since deploy doesn't have the lapse credentials option.
We started in inventory, okay.
All right, so if we go to deploy, in our case, we'll just do 7-zip because it's a quick install. I don't want to open it, I want to deploy it. And this is the big thing right here. Just check the box, use PDQ inventory scan user. So if you have lapse set as your scan user, deploy will use those same credentials when it does.
As long as that's
install.
checked, okay.
Yes. And we'll do Sam just because that's been my example for this whole time.
And we should talk about this because you're here. The lapse only works for push.
Push, yes, and we'll open up the preference to take a look at that one. Start that deploying, but we're talking about for that one preferences, performance right here. If you're using pull, new lapse will not work with pull. It just doesn't. It has to be push on that. So if that is another complication that's there, but that's just the way new lapse works. We don't have a way around it.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll go check the scan. But if you have other questions that have come in,
We have a lot.
right.
Well, I should say a lot. We
worked.
have a few.
yep. So the scan worked, and we'll see. Well, the deployment's still prepping, but yeah. So if you want to take some questions while
Yeah,
it's deploying,
let's do that. Hey guys, how does lapse work with machines that are off the network for long times and don't phone home regularly via VPN? Do you have to set the password age really long? PHSNR.
Now, my understanding is that because it's locally set, that it won't, when it checks in, it will update. It's fine. You don't need to change the password age complexity.
well, so yeah, the password itself sets from the AD property. So if they are not logging in or checking in with AD, the password on the local is not going to change.
Yeah.
The downside is if the password's still updating Active Directory and you try to connect to that machine with that password,
You might have a problem.
You'll have to use a different account for that one.
Yeah.
But once they connect, it will update everything and reconnect that way.
Yeah.
So
So a little,
go ahead.
I was just going to add a little bit of clarity to that. So the computers are actually given permission to update their attribute. So the next time the computer would be on your network, it would go ahead and update its password in AD.
Yeah.
Yep. So the only time you'd run into concern is if it was still offline. If it had been off for 45 days and you tried to connect without first getting on your network, the password that you would pull from AD is most likely not going to match the local password. But once you get it on the network, then everything should update, I believe.
I think since
think
the
that's the
computer
opposite,
can update
actually.
it shouldn't update
Yeah,
until it's connected.
that's
So
what
it
that
should
was
be-
my understanding.
So
have
you
an
think they
AD.
update at the same time?
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
then-
think until it can chitty chat, it's going to be stagnant.
that's
But
even better
maybe
then.
Andrew can look that up while we're looking at the next question.
Yep. Right. Well, no, it sounds if it's at the same time. If it needs the connection to work, that's even
Yes,
better.
I believe it does.
All right.
Oh, what
Would you like
Mike,
another question?
Let's do it.
Yeah, Mike is saying that. I think that's correct, but maybe Andrew can verify.
Next question. So you're saying if we use the built-in local admin, we should make a new one instead for new lapse? Not a good way to reuse the built-in?
I'm saying we had to. I would suggest testing.
So yeah, there's a potential for it to work, but if you're using the same account when you're changing the lapse, there is a chance of conflict.
Yes.
So I think if you removed the old policy and let everything clear out first and
Yes.
then redid it, you're less likely to have a problem. But if there's any remnants for the old one still in place, then you're probably going to run into some conflict.
I think Jordan was right when he said wait a day or so. I think that's probably accurate.
As a due date, that's just because I don't trust Active Directory. Active
Yeah.
Directory's
Yeah.
if it's an emergency, wait a week. If you got nothing but time, about 3 minutes. All right, so the deployment did work using the lapse credentials, so that is functioning there, and that's most of everything there. I think now we just have a whole bunch of questions to.
Well, so
jump
it's really easy in the client. It's the prep work beforehand that's kind of a bear. But honestly, if you follow that, the Microsoft article is hard. It is. The other article that we included, follow it to the T, and you will be perfect. I promise.
Yep, and we did get confirmation from the chat. They cleared it out. And it took about 3 days when they enabled,
Yeah.
and there's no problem. So
it's
you can use
possible.
the same one. You just want to make sure any remnants of the old one is cleared out. Otherwise, that's where conflicts happen, and it just gets weird.
Yeah.
Well, we only have 3 questions left.
All right, well, let's do it.
Okay, let's bust this out. And we thought we were going to go long today. How about that? What do you do if the computer password expires and the trust relationship is broken with the DC? Do you then log into the computer with the lapse password to rejoin the domain? Sincerely, Billy Z.
Well, so So again, I watched so many videos on this, and the one that I watched from the Microsoft MVP, it reiterated what we were just talking about, that it doesn't change if the trust relationship is broken. It's stored locally, so it's not going to change.
Yeah, since Labs is a local admin account, the trusted domain doesn't matter so much for that one.
That's right.
So you could use that to connect and then fix the trust while you're in there.
Yes.
But yeah, that should not be a problem.
All right, next question. Tim M. would like to know, I may have missed it, but how is the access granted / filtered to specific users and accounts to be able to view the lapsed password in AD?
It was that second PowerShell command.
So the second PowerShell command is what let the account update itself.
Or, no, but it's specific to the OU.
Well, I think he's
Changes
wondering
the
for the
password.
account. So in my
maybe
case,
do it
when we
again,
set it up,
sorry.
I use Quintana, but Quintana has a whole bunch of access. I'm not sure exactly what the AD role needs to be able to
Can I
decrypt
read
that.
it again, Kelly? I'm sorry. I read it too quickly. I'm sorry.
One
So
sec,
I know
let
the
me
answer
get
to
back
this
to
one.
Oh, Andrew knows it. Never mind. I don't need to see it.
Yeah, so there's a cool little PowerShell command called set lapse AD read password permission. And you can use that to allow people to have the permission to read the password property that we created, or attribute, I should say.
Yeah, so it's a very specific thing where you can allow it for certain groups. The one that we're using, Quintana, has just a lot of privileges already, so we didn't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But it would be part of the built-in commands there. What do you say? Set lapse AD. What was the
Password read.
password read?
Lapse AD read password permission.
Lapse AD read password.
Third from the bottom.
Third from, okay. So yeah, that command there, you just apply that. So I assume you could probably apply that to a group instead of just an individual account or an OU to make sure you have all these groups again. So if you have a sysadmins security group in your AD, just apply it to that or whichever ones you're looking for.
All right, new question. Imagine a computer is offline for a longer period of time than the lapse rollover timeout. Will the old device be able to authenticate? Marcel L.
Everything that I watch says yes because it's stored locally.
Yeah, I believe so. So all the passwords since the local account, everything's changing on the machine, and it's basically just taking a copy of that encrypted and putting it in Active Directory.
It has no ability to sync up, so it can't change.
As long as you have that password, you can use it on the local machine, and the domain doesn't really factor into it.
Yeah. But definitely check us, but that's my understanding.
Hang on one sec. Let me get back to these questions. Okay. I think we can get one in here.
All right, let's do it.
Is there a way to set up a collection for machines you receive the access denied error for? In the case, we do not want to blanket push a registry fix to all machines. Jesse T.
Which, understandable. That was our thought too.
Yes,
with
you
the
said
blank push
that.
that when we get some pushback. So, I mean, one way is for those that you're not looking to do that where Lapse isn't working, you can go in and change those and let's open up inventory. For those machines, you can change the scan user away from Lapse back to the one that was working for that. That way you don't have to do the registry. Because if it has Lapse and getting that error, it's going to keep getting that error. So a way to build a collection would be build a collection based on the scan error of access is denied.
Okay.
But if you're looking to still have those function and Lapse isn't quite working for you, the way I would do that would just be for those machines, you see the access denied, go through and change the scan user to the new one. You should be good to go.
Okay.
Mike also mentioned, he says, view the full list, sort it, and just select the ones with the error.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, next question.
All right.
Do you need to uninstall old labs from the clients? Brandon M.
It's not an uninstall, it's an unscoping the group policy, and yes, and you should give it time to
The reason for
run.
that, the legacy Lapse did have a little installer you'd have to do on a local machine.
Oh, no, you don't have to uninstall the
You have to worry about
MSI.
uninstall. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. You're not using it anymore.
Yeah.
I recommend, I don't know
Nothing
the
that I
sound parameter
read
for it,
said you
but
need
yeah,
to.
you can. I don't think you have to.
Yeah, and also a bit of clarity on these issues that we're talking about with like having labs set up in multiple places. The issue comes from with setting up labs. It's not like PDQ Inventory in particular is having an issue with it because it is configured to check for the attribute in AD. So it'll just check for one. If it doesn't see it, it'll go to the other.
I didn't remove it, and we didn't have any problems. I guess you definitely could.
But Marcel's in the chat saying that he says you have to remove it. So
Well, go with Marcel then.
like I said, whether you have to or not, if it's something you're not using, why keep it around on the system?
That's a good point.
I would look to get rid of it either way.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, final question so far. Can you recap the point about the inventory scan issue with lapse account? Sincerely, Mr. Binks.
Yep. So on that one, and let's see if I can log back into SAM. Basically, we found out with lapse, and this was in either lapse on our product, starting 1607 or later, there was an issue where even if you had lapse, when we go to scan, it would block it based on a certain permission. And so it was a registry we had to change for it. So if you saw the access denied, when I built the credential, I tested the one with access denied on purpose, just because it went out there, used the credential, and it said, yeah, it's working. So the lapse was there. But when we tried to do something beyond just testing the credential, something within that machine with the remote UAC blocked the entire install process or the entire deployment or scan. So it's something where we're not sure what change happened around 1607, but it is common. It doesn't hit every machine, but it was the registry, which, I don't know, instead of logging in, if we go to the PowerShell, it's located here, local machine, software, Microsoft Windows, current version, policy system. There should be a link down there where it has that path for you. And then that right there is the key and the value. So,
and I know this is UAC, but it's important to note this is
not the local UAC
exclusive.
Yeah,
exactly. It's different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for questions.
Oh, and then you get, according to the chat from Joe there, in the documentation, once the transition has completed, the final step should be to remove.
Let's get rid of it, man.
But that leads me to believe that you don't need to for it to work, because they said once the transition's completed. So it's not necessary for it to work, but still best practice.
Let's do it then.
Still do it. Yeah.
I like to be clean.
Yep. All right, that's all the questions.
Yep.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. I know this has been requested for a while. I'm glad that we were able to get this up and running. Hopefully this gives you everything you need to have the most secure environment you can. For PDQ, I'm Jordan.
I'm Tara.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations to Jesse T., winner of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. Also, if you like what you've seen, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a few comments. And if you have additional questions, reach out to our support forums, support@pdq.com. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week.